Okay, so for number one, that's multiplication. And how do you know that it's multiplication? What is not there? No plus or minus between the parentheses. So this here lets me know that I am multiplying because there's nothing there. So let's go ahead and make our box. Or you can do first, outer, inner, last. You don't have to make a box, but so we're gonna fill in all four squares. So we have 3 times 4, which is 12. So notice that I'm multiplying this 4 by the -1. I'm not multiplying, you can't multiply a number by a square root. You're multiplying the number in front of the square root, which is -1. So 4 times -1 would be -4. And then it would be a root 2. And then that third box, you would have 3 times the invisible 1 right here, which would be 3 root 5. And then my last box, I'm multiplying my 2 square roots. You can multiply 2 square roots. They don't have to be the same number to multiply them, but you cannot add them unless they're the same. Okay, so they have to be they don't have to be the same to multiply. So this is what you get. All right, none of these terms can be simplified. So this 2, I'm looking at what's underneath the square root. This cannot be simplified down any further. The 5 cannot be simplified. So there isn't a perfect square that can divide into 2, 5, or 10. Perfect squares would be 4, 9, 16, 25. So that's your answer. Your answer has 4 terms. And the order doesn't matter when you take them out of the box. You just have to have 4 terms. So my answer would be 12 minus 4 root 2 plus 3 root 5 minus the square root of 10. So that would be my final answer. Yes.
I thought the square root of 2 is 1.
The square root of 2 is not 1. If you type it in your calculator, you will not get 1. You're going to get like 1 point something. So you cannot simplify that. Okay, I to the 35. How high can I count? Counting by 4s.
32.
You can get all the way to 32. So that would be I 32 times I to the 3rd. I to the 3rd, what is I to the 3rd? Not -1, but negative I. Negative I. So I to the 1st is I squared is -1. I cubed is negative I. And then anything to the power of 4 is 1. So anything that has a factor of 4 is 1. So I to the 4th is 1. All right, and for our last one, number 3, let's go ahead and break this apart. We have 3 things. Yes. So -1i is the same thing as -I. It's kind of like saying -1x. That's the same thing as -x. Okay. So our last question, we have the square root of 54. I'm going to break it apart. So what's the perfect square that goes into 54? So 9 times 6, would you agree that 9 times 6 is 54?
Yes.
And is 9 a perfect square? Yeah. So I'm going to break that apart to 9 times 6. And then if I have 5 people, which is going to make that 3 root 6. All right, and if I have 5 people, how many pairs can I make with 5 people?
2.
You can make 2 pairs. But you're going to have 1 left over. And that 1 left over is just going to stay underneath the radical. If I have 6 people, how many pairs can I make? 3. So that would be b to the 3rd. So we're going to clean this all up. Everything that's not underneath a radical is going to go in the front. So that would be 3a squared b cubed. And then my 6 and the a have to stay. It should be, but I would not mark off if it was not. If you put 3b cubed a squared, then that's fine too. All right, so now I wanted to go over some homework questions. So for homework 4, I was asked to do 2 questions, so I'll do those 2 first. And then if there's any more homework questions, we have some time and we can go over additional questions. So homework 4, the first question I wanted to go over, and homework 4 is due tomorrow, is number 28. What did you say? Is it 81 or 81?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was confused with the question. I didn't know how to answer that. I was like, well, it is an 8 and a 1, but 8 and a 1 is 81. It's okay. Oh, yeah, I wouldn't use L. L because looks, L's, no, we would never use L as a variable. L, O, we stay away from those. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do when you see this is simplify what's underneath the radical. Before we deal with that index of 3, let's simplify what's underneath. So let's start with this fraction, 3 over 81. That actually can reduce down to 1 over 27 because you can divide both of these by 3. So 3 over 81 is going to reduce down to 1 over 27. And then when you think about your exponents, so I have x to the first and x to the fourth. What does that exponent law tell you to do with your exponents when you're dividing? Subtract. So I'm going to have x to the third. But where am I going to put that x to the third? Is that going to go in the numerator or the denominator? The denominator, good. So let's put that to our denominator. And then the y's actually cancel out. So now we have cleaned that up. We're ready to start taking the cube root. And there are 3 things underneath that radical that we have to take the cube root of. So the first thing I'm going to take the cube root of is the 1. So I'm going to take the cube root of 1, divide that by the cube root of 27 times the cube root of x cubed. And all of these are perfect cubes, so it should be pretty simple from here. What do you think the cube root of 1 is? What can I multiply against itself 3 times to get 1? 1. So my numerator is 1. 27 is also a perfect cube. What number to the power of 3 is 27? 3. And then if I have 3 people and I want to make a group of 3, I can make one group. So that would just be an X, and that would be your final answer. It looked kind of scary, but it's not so bad. All right, the second question I was asked to do was number 92. From homework 4, which is due tomorrow, but you can turn it in tomorrow or Friday. Homework 5, it says it's due Friday, but I'm moving that due date to Monday because our test is being moved to Wednesday. So we're going to have our first test next Wednesday instead of next Tuesday. So I'm pushing back a few due dates. I will update Canvas 4th period. You can always turn it in early, but I'm just going to update the due date. So make sure you check that. Homework 5 needs to be done on graph paper. So that's our first assignment where you have to graph. And you get In order to get full credit, it needs to be on graphing paper. All right, so let's look at number 92. All right, so 92. Now this is going back to Algebra 1, and I don't know if you remember this exponent law. And honestly, I haven't taught Algebra 1 in so long. I don't even know if they teach it. So we have 8 over 27 to the power of negative 2/3. Does anybody know how do I make this exponent positive? What do I have to do with this fraction to make it positive? Does anybody remember? You have to flip it. So they do teach it. Good. So instead of 8 over 27, it becomes 27 over 8. And then that will change my exponent to a positive. So now we're ready to take the cube root of both of those numbers because my denominator is the root. So because it's a 3, I'm taking the cube root, and then I'm going to square my answer. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the cube root of 27, and then whatever number you get, you're going to square it. And then the cube root of 8 and square it. All right, so what is the cube root of 27? What number can I multiply 3 times to get to 27? I think we just answered that, 3. And now you're ready to do the power. So now I'm going to put that 2. I'm going to attach that 2. I'm going to attach the 2 to 3. And in my denominator, I have the cube root of 8, which is 2. And then I'm going to attach that exponent to the 2. So our last step would be to simplify the exponent. So we did our root. Now we're ready to simplify the exponent. So our final answer would be 9 over 4. All right, are there any other homework 4 questions? Yes. 96. Oh, wait, I gotta get back to that page. All right, number 96. All right, so question number 96. So we have a negative 81 to the power of negative 3/4. So we don't have a fraction. So what we're going to do in order to make this exponent positive is put it under 1. So I'm going to have 1 over negative 81 to the power of positive 3/4. So that negative is not attached. So if that 81 is negative, and I can see how this might be a little confusing, but notice that we didn't put parentheses around here. So that means that 81, the negative is in front. So our answer is going to be negative. All right. So I'm still taking the 4th root of 81. And then whatever answer I get, I'm going to keep it negative. So my answer, so let me take away those parentheses. Hold on one second. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 1 over, I'm going to take the 4th root of positive 81 and then raise that to the power of 3 and make my answer negative. So the 4th root of 81, what number multiplied against itself 4 times is 81? And if you're not sure, just use your calculator and start guessing. Take 2 to the power of 4, 3 to the power of 4, 4 to the power of 4 to figure out what that number is. So we know that that is a 3. So I have 1 over. The negative is on the outside. Now I have 3 to the power of 3. And then 3 to the third is 27. So my final answer is 1 over negative 27. All right, I'm going to end there. So I want you all to have enough time for your skills check. So we'll go ahead and